Hello and welcome to the Hub on CGTN. The Belt and Road Initiative proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping turns 10 this year. After a decade, the greater connectivity has been seen throughout the logistic channels and infrastructure projects, while people and cultures along the BRI are getting closer. Such bond brings ever more exchanges, mutual learning, and potentially understanding. In what way has the BRI played a crucial role in bringing people together? And how can such a role be further leveraged to bolster mutual learning? To discuss all this and beyond, I sat down with a distinguished panel of experts.
接下来，让我们有请圆桌对话环节的各位嘉宾，他们是亚太“一带一路”共测会会长翁世杰 Mr. Ong Tae-kat. We've heard from him. He's president of the Belt and Road Initiative Caucus for Asia Pacific. Welcome. 中国人民大学新闻学院教授、公共外交研究院副院长、“一带一路”国家记者培训项目创始负责人钟欣女士。Madam Zhong Xin is the founding director of the BRI Journalist Exchange Program at German University. 复旦大学“一带一路”及全球治理研究院常务副院长黄仁伟先生 Mr. 黄仁伟 is the executive dean of Fudan Institute of Belt and Road and Global Governance. 清华大学“一带一路”研究院研究员明竹女士 Madam Zun Ahmad-Time Research Fellow at the Belt and Road Strategy Institute at Tsinghua University. She's also a fellow at the Center for China and Globalizations. We also have one more guest, Dr. Jill Stajan, Director of Business Operations of African Chamber of Commerce in China. How are you, my friend? Sorry about that. All good? Good to see you. 王老师，你好。钟院长。Minister, good to see all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to see all of you. Let's get to it. The power of culture in shaping perceptions and transcending our differences. We've so often heard that culture transcends, right? But given the reality, I would like to ask all of you this question. Perhaps you can start by sharing with us your opening thoughts. In this day and age, in light of all the geopolitical tensions between China and the United States, the war in Eurasia, does culture still transcend? What power does culture truly hold? Let me start with you, Minister.
Well, I think by and large, as it is today, we can see that culture is the subject matter that has caught the least attention from the state actors as well as the bureaucrats. Nonetheless, it is certainly crucial. It promotes understanding and enduring peace. Generally speaking, the masses, the people of different colors, different background, they may not be able to understand the profound philosophies of the various cultures. So it is our job, whoever the promoters are, to make it simple, easy to understand, and make it reachable to various levels of social strata. This is my take.
Let me get your thoughts, Ding Huang. Do you think the power of culture is still evident, or do you think the gap of understanding, the gap of different cultures, is widening despite all the tools, all the digital communications tools at our disposal are increasing?
In the world, there are a lot of cultures, and they are very different. The Western culture, sometimes they believe it's more advanced than non-Western cultures. Actually, it's not. Like African, very beautiful music, very beautiful painting. You see, this culture should be very much respected. Like many minorities in China, when we travel in Yunnan or in Xinjiang, we enjoy these cultures in these minorities. Along the Belt and the Road, we know better and better about cultures outside of China. Actually, we didn't understand the Pakistan culture very much. When we got into the Pakistan-China corridor, more and more Chinese workers living in Pakistan, they can understand the Pakistan culture when they live there 3 years, 5 years. That's what I understand. Culture is power, but this is not any kind of power to press others' culture. This is power to respect other cultures.
Zun, do you think we're getting more inward looking and then more nationalistic, and then more narrow-minded instead of more globally minded. I mean, do you still think that culture and civilizations can effectively reach across borders, reach across religions and civilizations?
First of all, I mean, culture is how we exist. All of us, we come from a certain cultural context. So it is everyone's individual reality. And then secondly, the diversity of cultures is another fact. Now the question is, does this diversity help us understand and respect each other, or does it threaten us? There are differences between China and Pakistan, but when you observe people and interact with them up close, you realize that in the end, there are also a lot of similarities. The importance of family, parents, children, customs, what they lead to is the same. So I think, number one, we need to recognize that, yes, there is a trend which has been sort of spearheaded by, like again was mentioned, some Western countries that thought that they have arrived, they have emerged, and the others must learn from them and follow them. This is wrong. 80% of the world's people do not think like that, and that 80% is rising. Culture leads us to understand each other's history. And history is as humbling as it is inspiring. It's helping us empathize with each other, relate to one another, and it can help us learn from a historic perspective. So it is more relevant than ever before, and how we talk about other regions. Lastly, I'll add that, for example, CGTN's coverage of the African continent is very different from what many Western media were doing 20 years ago. And that watching that coverage is helping more people respect the culture from those countries.
Dr. De Jong, I just came back from South Africa, actually, my first trip to Africa. Throughout the decades, we know that Africa is emerging from colonialism and trying to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of modernization and industrialization. Tell us about the importance of having the Africa and the African culture and civilizations properly represented on the global stage. What are the challenges and the opportunities in this digital age?
In the 16th century, the world had been living under one civilization. It's called the Western civilization. And they were able to set up the standards and the different norms and codes. Africa was part of that. Today, we are living in a different era. The BRICS, you were talking about South Africa, has the potential to open a world where we could see emerge or revigorate all the civilization. These civilizations have been hidden, tamed, under control for almost 500 years. Now we have the opportunity to express it, to present it. This is what the BRICS is about. The value of what the BRICS is bringing is the presentation of each part of the world, each beauty of the world. We can all be together while having our own identity.
Culture is a big concept. It can be a vague concept, but it connotates and encompasses so many things: politics and diplomacy, commerce, investment, studying abroad programs, touring around each other's countries, entertainment, sports, and music. So, Minister Om, out of all the things that we've mentioned, which element of culture do you think is still relevant and effective in reaching across cultures at this point?
In the full spectrum of cultures, I could see very clearly that the subculture remains the most popular. Many a time, politicians or even policymakers, they turn a blind eye to subcultures. Subcultures include things like street art or pop cultures, pop music. It is crucial for us to make full use of subcultures in order to make things understood, more comprehensible among people of all walks of life.
Director Zhong, what do you think? What are some of the lower hanging fruits that we can start with by bridging the gap of understanding and reducing hostility? Because there's simply too much hostility out there.
There are so many things we can share with the world, we can change with the world. There is one museum in Beijing which exhibited what kind of food have been introduced by Zhang Qian. If you go to Beijing, go to look at how Zhang Qian had imported such food from Western world to China. Food can make people collected. Whenever you say something which make the people collected would be effective ones. Today we're talking about the Belt and Road. I think this high-speed train. The high-speed train is really something which can symbolize the past 10 years of the BRI construction. Last month I went to Kunming and I saw the beginning point of the China-Lao Railway. I also interviewed the journalists from Lao News Agency. They say that they really collect the people and benefit the people of both sides. They make laws from landlocked country to land-linked country. This is what I was very impressed. We'll try to find culture, that very important part of the culture which can create empathy.
Yeah, I mean, talking about sports, I was recently in South Africa. I grew into the habit of visiting bookstores, whichever city I go. And in Johannesburg, 2 best-selling books. One is about a rugby player. It's a white rugby player in South African team. The other one, of course, is the autobiography of Trevor Noah, the talk show host. What does that say, De Jong, about the power of sport and culture? And there's so much that Africa has to offer.
Yes, I would like to also get back to what my colleague said before. I think art should be the #1 vector or vehicle of a very unique world. What I mean is, for example, you have 3,000 languages in Africa. That means we can never speak the same language, even if within Africa we are not able to speak the same language. So it will be impossible to have one unique language. The British tried it, it didn't work. But sport and art are 2 things where, regardless of your nationality, your language, your race, your background, we can understand each other. When I see a painting from a Chinese painter, for example, I know the beauty. I don't need someone to translate to me. Same thing with art, same thing with sport. When I see a boxer, when I see a rugby player, for example, you see this is an athlete because we all share the same thing. We have a body, so we can understand it as a universal language among people living on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. People have been talking about the fact that the people of African descent, they're gaining a foothold in Western European societies, first through sports. If you look at the 2018 French national men's football squad that won the World Cup that year, 8 out of the 11 players were of African descent, including Mbappe. Only 3 players were white players, namely Griezmann, Giroud, and the goalkeeper who played for Tottenham Spurs. Of course, Dean Huang, you showed us the beautiful pictures of the Dunhuang art, the grottos over there. It was a center of excellence. It was at the height of cultural exchanges. But nowadays, what would you say about the current state of affairs when it comes to cultural exchanges?
I think we should think of next 50 years or 100 years. What will happen in cultural exchange? That is some kind of revolution is happening. That is AI. AI will totally change the ways of cultural exchange. You see, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I played the Weiqi, the Go. People said that no one can make the robot, the computer, to win human brain. Now, the AI much higher than human brain. And the AI will create new cultures. The AI can put different cultures together in one culture, much bigger than narrowly restricted by regions, by areas. And when you watch a TV, the most important thing is the language. And you cannot translate Hollywood to all the languages, but the AI can. Any film, any movie, if export to some country.
Simultaneously, or?
They can, the hero can speak the local language immediately. No problem. So the exchange of the culture exchange will be very easy.
So it's a technology that might transcend.
Yes.
It's very interesting, Minister, on top of subcultures. And then for Joe's talked about the power of art and sports, and Ding Huang is talking about the AI and technology, and Dr. Zhong also talked about the power of empathy, things that we can all empathize with. Zun, what do you think? Well, where should we start?
It would be the degree to which we can facilitate interaction and discussion between people from different cultures. So for example, one of the first projects that I was lucky to be a part of back in 2016 was a think tank cooperation study between China and the Muslim world. And at that time, there was an acute realization that even though a predominant number of Muslim countries, the countries that were in the first phase of the BRI were Muslim countries, the direct think tank linkages between both sides are few. And what that leads to is maybe more information coming to the Muslim world about China from the West and about the Muslim world from the West towards China. So a big project has been in these years, and we can all observe the increased linkages between think tanks, media, academics, students of China and the Muslim world, of China and the Belt and Road countries. And what is that essentially leading to? More spaces for interaction, more collaboration, more ways to understand one another. And that's where, we need to ask ourselves, what exactly is the goal? What are we trying to achieve from deepening cultural cooperation? Is it familiarity or fondness, right? So that's where I think familiarity is absolutely very important, because once you start the conversation, once you understand one another, you can relate to each other. That increases empathy, like you just said, but that also increases the potential for mutual opportunities. And in the end, that's what we are looking for, a world that is more pragmatically, more practically connected.
So, Minister On, let me start with you. I mean, you were the Vice Minister of Higher Education in Malaysia. That is a very unique country. People have very good memories of Malaysia. Back in the day when Michelle Yeoh, the recent darling, has long been the darling of Malaysia, who just won the Oscars, that famous commercial where Michelle Yeoh declared that Malaysia truly Asia. That was a brilliant piece of commercial, I must say. I was 14, 15 years old. I do remember that. Malaysia truly Asia, talking about the fact that it's diverse, ethnically, religiously, and racially. When you were Vice Minister of Higher Education, how did you put in a program that tend to the interests of all these ethnic groups, while still leading a program that connotates the love of country while opening their eyes and the mind to the outside world?
Now, because knowing very well that Malaysia has always been one of the models to manifest cultural diversity, I must say that the biggest challenge is that we need to break the barriers, the conspicuous as well as the unseen barriers, ethnic barriers, religious barriers, and some other related complexities as well. And that has never been easy, because barriers, put it this way, barriers would keep people away from mutual understanding, or perhaps even acceptance, the basic acceptance of tolerance. People can get more and more intolerant of others, right, without understanding. That I would call the most basic fundamentals we need to work on. And later on, of course, when we are there already, we should endeavor further to further develop understanding and acceptance of coexistence. That is the second tier. Then coming to the higher plane, then we can talk about interaction. Interaction, that means to say they can mingle, not just physically, but also mentally and academically. That would lay the foundation for mutual appreciation. Mutual appreciation, put it this way, is the most challenging. It's the most challenging. I wouldn't say that is the end game, but certainly that is the ideal we need to attain through painstaking efforts.
Director Zhong, you lead a very important program, a journalism program at your university. Also, you're a founding director of the Belt and Road Journalist Exchange programs. So we know that the love of country is emphasized here in China and across almost each and every country that I've visited, that we've been. How do you reconcile and put together a program that combines love of country while opening the eyes and mind of your students to the outside world?
One of the important part of my job is to organize the exchange program for the Belt and Road country journalists, and of course, all the journalists love their own country, love their own countries, and we love our own countries. At the same time, we also love the world. It's not conflicting. If you love your country more, you should love the world more. I think it's really, it's one thing. It's not two things. It's one thing. So when the journalists come to China, they realize that what they should learn from China, they love more about China. And when they go back, they can use what they have learned from China for their own country, to contribute to the construction or development of their country. So we come to the theme of this topic, the mutual learning of civilizations.
Ding Huang, you published this very important article, The Time and Space of China's Rise, that was published in 2002. It's widely quoted, perhaps one of the most widely quoted article on China's rise back in 2001 when the concept of the rise of China was still in its nascency. Do you think the time and scope of China's rise has basically finished? I mean, in the Western world? I mean, what are the prospects in the landscape now?
China's rise is very unique. This is 1.4 billion people to have a better life. This is the China's rise. China's rise is very, very sustainable. The community of shared future. People always believe this is some kind of political slogan, not the reality. But the Belt and Road shows it is the practical reality what China can do and should do. When we grow up, we should share our development with others. And the others' development will give China more opportunity. This is totally different thinking with so-called superpower or hegemony. For 500 years, always Western hegemony. So now China's emerging as a different country, different power. This power is based on the living standard of Chinese people. So this is the base of China's rise.
Zun, you come from a country that's had its fair share of factional infighting. How is the situation there when it comes to putting together a national program, consolidating this love of country, while appealing for more openness, looking out to the outside world?
Historically, there was diversity, and that diversity was our strength. And even in that, we were interacting historically with China, with other regions. It wasn't a problem. And I think the crux of it would be to understand patriotism as not becoming like each other, but as just a basic love for the homeland. It doesn't need to be divisive at all. We have a unique perspective even within a country, and that can lead to synergy if we understand one another and respect each other. That if we think pragmatically, if the government also works more on helping people overcome the current challenges we are facing of misunderstanding each other, I think it's going to help us overcome this.
Yeah, of course, Pakistan is not a monolithic whole, neither is Africa. Jules, talk to us about what do you think are the misrepresentations of Africa in the global news landscape?
The reason why the Western media, for example in the US, the perception of Africa is from the European perspective, because of course the US have never colonized Africa, but they rely on what the British has to present to them, or the French. The reason why we have this situation in Africa today is because we don't have access to tools of communication. Our perception of the world is based on somebody else's tool. We are perceived by foreigners from the point of view of European. We need to take back that narrative like China did. And we believe in this way we could achieve something.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for a last round of ending thoughts, very quick thoughts, starting from Minister On.
The misconceptions or sometimes even deliberate distortion of Chinese ideals, the problem lies in the lack of understanding. People don't believe. Why they don't believe? Because you have yet to come up with your own narrative that is convincing. The major bulk of our audience is the fence-sitters. That means to say these people, they are vulnerable to influence from either side. They could be influenced by Chinese and also at the same time by the West. Yeah, and we need to capture this particular segment of people, not that we want to convince the diehards. Forget about that.
Very, very thoughtful. Dr. Zhong.
The differences of cultures makes a colorful world which we can enjoy and help each other to develop together. So the BRI really provided the opportunity for us to have cultural exchanges. And this will provide us more cooperation and common development.
Yep, that is our intention. Thank you for your well-wishing remarks. Ding Huang?
There are three ways of strategic thinking. One is geopolitical, geo-economy. Now we are having a new thinking, that is geoculture. Geoculture is produced or based on the geopolitical and geo-economy, but it's longer and more profound than geopolitical and geo-economy. So if we think in geoculture, then we can find many things. We can have common ground. People can work together and make a better future.
Yeah, thank you very much for those insights. Zoom?
Communication is important because we realize that we are not just recipients of what's being talked about us, or we are not just observers in this world. What's essential for us is to take that agency that we already have and take it into action. Let's focus on one another. Let's keep being honest, straightforward about what we want, and improve our understanding about each other. And I think that's what the communication should be targeted at.
Great. Thanks, Zoom. Jose?
When you open newspaper today, you read the death trap. If you don't communicate, people will communicate for you. So it's important for us to have better tools of communication, to better express ourselves, to better understand each other.
Thank you very much, guys. And that is wrapping up our panel discussion. And per ritual of this program, I would like to invite all of you to the center of the stage for a family photo.